In a world of big money power, accidents don't just happen, and coincidence is only an excuse for the guilty. Welcome to the Conspiracy Chronicles.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We must not fail to comprehend its grave implications.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
There has been an attempt, as perhaps you know now, on the life of President Kennedy. He was wounded in an automobile driving from Dallas Airport into downtown Dallas. The flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
Senator Robert Francis Kennedy died at 1:44 a.m. today, June 6, 1968.
An incident that took place less than 15 minutes ago at the Washington Hilton Hotel when shots were fired at President Reagan.
A second bomb has been found inside that federal building in Oklahoma City.
The whole side has collapsed?
The whole building has collapsed.
The whole building has collapsed?
The building has collapsed.
That's the southern tower you're talking about.
Exactly, the second building.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
And now, here are your conspiracy detectives, Joe Joseph and Tim Watts.
Welcome, everybody, to this Sunday edition of the Freedom Links Conspiracy Chronicles on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm Joe Joseph, and tonight, myself and my blushing bride, Angie, go over the conspiracy against the pain sufferers in the world. I mean, in America, but it's happening all over the world.
Yes.
And at an alarming rate. I mean, this is an epidemic that really doesn't get any attention in the mainstream media. As a matter of fact, people are vilified just for want of relief. So tonight, I have a very special guest. My guest is Dr. Alen Salerian, and he's of the Salerian Center for Neuroscience and Pain. Dr. Salerian has been practicing medicine for 40 years in Washington, D.C. He's a life member of the American Psychiatric Association and former chief psychiatric consultant for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. During his tenure at the FBI, he developed the Bureau's mobile psychiatric emergency intervention program. His work is internationally renowned and has been published in well-respected publications, including American Journal of Psychiatry, Forensic Examiner, Journal of Clinical Psychiatry, and the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, and USA Today, amongst others. And I am so happy to have him on the broadcast because this is a doctor that's going to tell you like it is.
And he's currently suffering persecution at the hands of the DEA.
That's right.
Because the DEA, in order to justify their budget and their numbers, are going after easy targets with paper trails, which would be the doctors in this country who are treating the people that are suffering with chronic, intractable pain.
That's right. So welcome to the broadcast, Dr. Salerian.
Thank you very much for the complimentary words. And then let me share a few words about myself. Most importantly, my passion is medicine, and I'm a proud doctor, and I feel it's the greatest privilege to be a physician and to be trusted by people. And it's in my blood, it's in my heart to speak the truth and with a perspective coming from science as well as ethics. That's one thing that I want to emphasize, that every doctor has an obligation, whether American or Chinese, to place the needs of patients ahead of anything else, including his own interest. And that's nowadays my greatest pain. I have nothing else to say. I believe in science and I believe in Hippocrates, and I think what's happening to people with pain is wrong for two basic reasons. Number one, any kind of pain, whether it's a knee pain or headache or heartache, if there is pain, there is brain damage. And thanks to pioneering work of Dr. Opkarian from Northwest and Dr. Baliki, we know this, and that chronic pain causes brain damage. What does it mean? When there is pain untreated, even if we're toughing it out, we're contributing to Alzheimer's, early death, and dementia, which kills 75,000 people every year. And so, at times I get frustrated with DEA, but I do think that our biggest enemy is ignorance and not DEA, that we owe it to the American public to educate them that there are over 110 million Americans in pain, and they're not getting adequate treatment because of fear.
Right.
Let me stop here and try to take your lead.
No, that's fine. But you're absolutely right, and you hit the nail on the head. People seem to be demonized, and we live this at home firsthand, especially with people that don't suffer pain, have no frame of reference really to understand just not only how pain affects you physically, but how it affects you mentally. Oh. And just how incredibly difficult it is just to get up in the morning, because, and I'm not saying that from a painful perspective physically, I'm saying mentally, just how mentally debilitating it is to wake up in the morning and say, good grief, I've got to go through this day like this again. You know?
It affects the entire family. It really
truly does. It does. And unfortunately, people are demonized when they can't do as much, or they have to be on a pain regimen, some sort of pain medicine management type of program. And this is the things that we're trying to dispel.
Honey, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I want to explain to people, listeners that have not had experience with this,
sure,
what chronic pain sufferers currently have to go through to get treated, okay? And that's just to get seen by a doctor. That does not mean the doctor is actually going to treat their pain, okay? A lot of times there's a lot of hoops to jump through. You have to take a lot of drugs that are dangerous and do not help because it's what the doctors are doing to cover their rear ends, because if they don't go through these procedures...
Let me interrupt you there.
Yes.
All pain patients are modern slaves.
Right.
Okay? You are treated as a slave.
Mm-hmm.
You are treated as a second-class citizen.
That's right. We have to surrender our rights.
From the moment you walk into the doctor's office, from the way he questions you,
right,
to the moment you go to pick up your medication from the pharmacy.
The pharmacy, that's right.
It's nonverbal. The nonverbal barriers are much more toxic.
Right.
But let's face it, we treat people with pain as a subclass.
Like they're lepers, that's right.
Exactly. And we make sure that they remain an underclass. And now, how can we fight this, and where is this coming from? Number one, it's prejudice. Number two, it's prejudice with ignorance, because the media and our collective medical information is constantly bombarding the public with inaccurate messages. The messages are the following. We have a big addiction problem. Everybody is dying of addiction.
Right.
If you're on pain medication,
Number one, that's a big lie. That is not true. Okay.
Well,
Number two, addiction and all these deadly epidemics are coming from narcotic painkillers. The views are distorted because of Hollywood stars are coming down. Even those stories now, I'm highly suspicious, but I won't go there. What I would say is that to become an addict today in the United States, you have to be rich.
Yes, hold that thought.
Hold that. The middle class or the poor man that can't afford.
Hey, Doc, hold that thought. We're going to break. When we come back, we'll have more with Dr. Salerian, and we'll get into the farces that are kind of thrown or shoved down our throat that we're forced to accept. So don't go away. This is Freedom Links Conspiracy Chronicles on the Orion Talk Radio.
Severe injury to my pelvis when I gave birth to our second daughter, and have had severe chronic pain ever since, and it's caused a lot. Pelvic instability has caused a lot of other problems, hips and back. And so when somebody's dealing with chronic pain like this, what happens is they have to get a referral from their either family physician or whatever doctor they're seeing currently that is has diagnosed the injury or the situation that's causing the pain. They get a referral to a pain management doctor or specialist, okay? Then they have to go there, and those doctors are usually so flooded with patients that there's a long waiting period before they can even see you, because regular doctors are just, they will not write prescriptions for narcotic painkillers. And if they do, it's minimal and not nearly enough to help. You're taking more poison than you are pain-relieving medication with the acetaminophen and all that garbage that's in it. So then you have to go to this pain doctor and bring all your records. They want to run all kinds of tests, and that's fine. That's great. That's what, targets what's causing the pain and, helps come up with a plan of action with how to treat it and how to prevent it from getting worse, which should be everybody's primary concern, how to prevent these injuries or these issues from getting any worse. So you go and you see the pain specialist. You usually get lots of x-rays and MRIs. You have to get injections of, nerve-blocking medications and steroids and all kinds of things into the area of pain.
I have to interrupt. I have to
Please
say all
do,
these
doctor.
treatments are sham.
Yes, they
really,
are.
There's no scientific validity except that patients are now viewed as ATM machines.
Yes.
That if you look at the scientific studies, nothing would support the injections or the physical therapy or other interventions. There's no scientific evidence. I have, in fact, the evidence that there are sham treatments.
Right.
And any doctor who's promoting them, I think I have doubts.
And they
about,
usually make the situation worse.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
can you explain why doctors are doing that? Why they have to prescribe drugs that don't work and with the injections? Explain why they're doing that.
I don't blame my colleagues in some ways because standards are irrational and backward and based upon medical knowledge that was established maybe 30, 40 years ago. Okay? So they're not up-to-date scientific information. They're old information, but unless the doctor does all those things before prescribing a painkiller, he's setting himself up for trouble.
That's right.
So,
right.
It's an ordeal. It's a ritual every doctor goes through, and at least half of them believe that it may do something. From where I sit, and now I should say I myself had a bad back. I ran 2 marathons and other injuries. I went through all those things. My wife and both of my sons, unfortunately, because of car accidents, serious car accidents, ended up with severe pain. Based upon our collective family experience, I can say that out of 4 of us, nobody benefited from these extra things that we went through. Right. And that's what prompted me. I was not a pain guy. When I saw what my wife went through, I went into neuroscientific research. I said, where is the data as to why people are doing these shots and so on? I cannot find any evidence that it does anything, except that if you do, in fact, cross the line more than 3, you're risking very serious benefits.
Well, really what it is, it's the equivalent of placebo. It's the equivalent of something that's done to make the patient believe that something's being done that should or will help. And, you know, the goal is to sort of weed out those that really need the drugs from those that don't, in a sense that there will be some people who are not necessarily in need of large quantities of narcotic medication to relieve pain. And so they're the ones that may say, yeah, it helps, you know, forget it. This is too much hassle just to get some pills, and hopefully they'll go on their way. But doctors are doing this to cover their rear ends because they are faced with a choice to either help the patient, give the patient the cure, which is narcotic pain medication. It's safe, it's effective, it takes care of the pain, and it does not make people high that are genuinely suffering in pain. And Dr. Salerian can go into that and why that is the case, but that has a lot to do with tolerance and the endorphins that are already going because you're already in a lot of pain.
The rules, actually, physiological rules are very simple.
Right.
Any substance, any medication that is slow release and has a long half-life, which means it takes a long time to get out of your system in terms of elimination, cannot cause any addiction or euphoria. For euphoria to be experienced, we need a rush of dopamine in the front part of the brain. For this to happen, we need a fast-acting medication that enters fast and gets out fast. So with the medications that we use for chronic pain, they're long-acting agents. Opana, for instance, Opana ER, methadone, fentanyl patch.
Fentanyl patches, right.
Zero chance of euphoria-associated addiction or dependence.
And now I was on fentanyl patches myself. I was on 125 microgram doses. Every 3 days I had to replace my patches, and they worked, and I didn't have the ups and downs of pain relief because you take pills, the pills wear off, the pain gets worse, and that constant roller coaster. It's in your blood all the time, and it does help with the pain, and you're not going through the bouts of drowsiness or anything like, it's effective, and you're not getting high, and it doesn't have the some of the negative side effects.
Getting high is not a crime.
It is not right, exactly.
That's right.
You have a glass of wine, you feel tipsy and happy.
That's
Why
right.
is it wrong? Who's making this moral case?
This is modern day witch hunting.
To feel good.
It's not really.
Somehow morality entered this picture.
Right.
When you do the homework, Doc, and you look as far as what is the prime motivator here, well, follow the money. I mean, that's really the prime motivator. You have opiates that work great, but, there's no money in cures or in effective cures, but there sure is money in all these other drugs that the pharmaceutical companies are pumping out, much like alcohol. Could you imagine what would happen if they reinstituted prohibition tomorrow? I mean, what kind of hit that would be to the American economy? Because look at all the beer that gets drank on a daily basis. It's unbelievable.
Let me take
hold that thought, Doctor. Yeah, when we come back from break, we'll discuss exactly what you're going to say. So don't go anywhere, folks. So much more with Dr. Salerian, and we're also going to get into his activism and what he's trying to do to change things for the better here in America for people in pain. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Radio says put your activism where your mouth is. Make a truth banner with a creative message to display in public. Make sure you mention Orion Talk Radio somewhere on the sign. Then take a picture of yourself and send it to us at oriontalkradio@gmail.com. We'll post your picture on our new activism page and show the world your message. So get the word out. Get the word out. Gee whiz. Joe Joseph here along with Angie Joseph, our special guest, Dr. Alen Salerian. And before the break, we were talking about what motivates these pharmaceutical companies. And, you know, that's money, isn't it, Doc?
Yes, and I'm not going to blame them. I think we live in a capitalist system. I love money personally. I'm not opposed to making more money, and I have no problem with it. Right now, I see that the companies are very comfortable with the way they are making money, and they are not as interested in rocking the boat by changing the paradigm. But I'm going to suddenly switch and share something very personal. 2 days ago, Friday, I was really very depressed. That was the day after, and that I heard my patient Joseph Nasser, a young man, age 22, committed suicide.
Yeah.
It cannot get any worse than that for a doctor.
Tragic.
I like this guy. He's a Bethesda boy, a wonderful kid. He came to me several years ago, and he had mixed problems, but I found a cocktail that included his narcotics. He was so good with this that he was able to travel and go to Arizona State to complete his studies that he had interrupted. And suddenly, on April 4th, Mayor of D.C., using his executive privileges, took my DEA license away for Class 2. And I shouted, screamed, I said, some people are going to die. I wish not. My patients went to television stations, and I leave the drama out. People were very upset. When this happened, I got a frantic call a couple of weeks later, from Joe, and saying, Doc, please do something because I can't concentrate. I can't feel. I'm in pain. My back hurts. I'm going downhill, and I don't think I can take this. You have to find somebody. I'm embarrassed as a doctor. Now that my license is threatened, despite my 40 years of practice, not a single doctor except one was willing to cover my practice.
Yeah,
it's really shameful, but it's true. 40 years of practice, not a single doctor. 18 doctors promised. Only one doctor, bless his heart, John Merzak, but by then he was overwhelmed. He was not taking any patients. I pleaded with this young man. And Friday I heard that he committed suicide. He went to a cave in the mountains and slit his wrist. I blame the government, and I'm only sharing this because I'm in pain.
And his family should sue the government for this. This is a wrongful death. What the doctor is talking about is a lot of times this is what happens. The government goes after doctors that are prescribing the drugs necessary for people in chronic pain to just live their life. That's all they want to do is live their life. I myself have stopped driving. I no longer even have a driver's license. I just let it expire because when I'm riding in a vehicle, I have to lift my rear end up off the seat whenever we go over a bump in the road. I literally can't drive a vehicle anymore. It's that bad. So what happens is the government attacks the doctor writing the prescriptions to help people, and the patients all of a sudden they no longer have access to their medication that they need to live. Because they usually the medication stops abruptly, they start going to horrible withdrawals because your body is physically dependent on the medication. And no doctors surrounding the practice that they were being seen at will write those prescriptions for them. So then they're left with nothing. And people do commit suicide over this. I mean, I can't tell you about the emotional turmoil our family's gone through.
Right. I was on record with the D.C. licensing board as well as the health department that they were taking a very big risk by doing what they did. And I said, I'm afraid the same thing is going to happen that happened to Dr. Hurwitz. When his license was gone, 7 people committed suicide. And I hate to acknowledge it, but my prediction came true, and I'm afraid the longer they delay the final decision. I had my 3-week trial, and I'm confident that I cleared all the answers. They had 48 questions, 48 answers. I think the final score was like 48-0. But I still don't have my Class 2 license.
Because this is not about whether you're doing the right or the wrong thing.
Right.
This is about making an example out of you, Dr. Salerian. And let me just for those that are not aware of the environment surrounding doctors and patients that are suffering horribly, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons has put out they put out a warning. It says, advice to doctors, RE pain management. It says, if you're thinking about getting into pain management using opioids as appropriate, don't. Forget what you learned in medical school. Drug agents now set medical standards. If you do, first discuss the risks with your family. They could lose a mother or father or breadwinner, their home, their car, their college fund. There could be years of harassment and legal fees. Your colleagues will probably ostracize you and family members at the first sign of trouble. And that's what's going on. That's what our doctors are dealing with by simply trying to help people that need it desperately.
No, that's absolutely right.
Whose lives have come to a screeching halt as a result of pain that's unmanaged.
And this is an epidemic in this country, more to the tune of being, I would say, probably up around top 5, Doc, as far as the killers are concerned. Pain.
I would say it's in the top 5.
Yeah.
I know my numbers. 100,000 people die every year in the United States because of pain. Now, we have, on an annual basis, 2.4 million people dying. So you may say, what is 100,000? But to me, every life matters.
Right.
And it's irrational loss. These are preventable deaths.
It's modern-day witch hunting is what's going on. It's a modern-day witch hunt.
I also want, like you did, I want to warn my fellow doctors, the government's biggest weapon, as I experience, is doctors who are blackmailed. In my trial, I could not believe it, that there were 3 doctors and 1 pharmacist I never met in my life. And only with one of them, I had a 10-minute telephone conversation. They were on the stand or through video testifying or writing letters that I'm a drug dealer. I said, how is this possible? Had I lived in Soviet Union, something like this maybe in China, in my imagination, the worst days of Stalin or something, or Mao, I can imagine. But now, here in Washington, D.C., I was so upset that I could not stay around. I left. I told the lawyer, I said, you tell the judge. It's not, think personally, it's not arrogance. I cannot listen to these liars. But another perspective, they're all blackmailed. Somebody is telling them, if you don't do this against Salerian, we're going to take something away from you. And a blackmail is being very effective.
Yes.
Is working. Otherwise, I cannot. Now, one of the doctors, thank God, I'm going to mention his name. These are despicable guys. Michael Fratkin, a California psychiatrist, under oath, admitted that. He lied, and he manipulated, and the judge said he's concerned about a doctor lying about another doctor. Michael Fratkin is a California doctor who lied. Another doctor is Dr. David Katz, a Bethesda doctor, who wrote a letter. I have the letter right now as I speak with you. And
hey, Doc, before you get into that letter, let's hit that letter when we come back, because I want you to illustrate just how corrupt the system is and what exactly you're up against here at your trial.
The doctors will sell each other out if they think it's going to keep them off the DEA radar. That's what they're doing.
That's right. We'll be right back. Orion Talk Radio is growing fast, and it's all thanks to you. With over 1.2 million people listening in just 30 days, people are now making Orion Talk Radio their choice for the truth. They know the corporate mainstream media machine has failed us miserably, so thank you to each and every one of you for listening to Orion Talk Radio. News and views beyond the mainstream media. Joe Joseph here, along with Angie Joseph, my wife, and our special guest, Dr. Alen Salerian. And Doc, you were talking about the liars that went and they took the stand against you when you didn't even know them. And you received a letter, did you not?
Yeah, I think this is the most painful part in my and disappointment in my fellow physicians that they can lower themselves to writing letters that are completely fabricated, and they're lies. They're goddamn lies. I'm not going to excuse them because they know what they're saying in that letter. This is one doctor. He's on record, David M. Katz, M.D., Bethesda neurologist. He claims that I'm a drug dealer in his letter to the D.C. Licensing Board. I only accept cash from my patients, and he has evidence for it. He says I have my family also involved in this business, and I'm a dangerous soul. Other insults that I will not even enter. But basically, he says, Dr. Salerian is a drug dealer that's promoting substance abuse in our society, and he is running a narcotics for cash practice.
And I hope that you're planning to sue him for slander. I hope that you will sue this doctor for slander. Because
I am planning to, but I want you to know I am bankrupt.
Yeah,
okay?
I know.
And so when you're bankrupt, you cannot pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult.
Because the legal fees...
I'm not for money or this, but... it is absolutely true that money is a big factor. They have created such a mess for me. My bank kicked me out. They cut off my credit line. My landlord, I'm going to mention their names, Bernstein Management, the leading real estate company in Washington, forces me out of my building, takes a legal suit, claiming that some of my patients urinated. You know, they don't have a good imagination. They could have come up with a better story because the windows on my floor are locked. Who can open the window? What crazy patient, even in pain, would urinate? This is the claim. They use this to kick me out.
But this is typical
me a lot of money. But the bottom line is the system has a marvelous way of attacking an individual, and then all I have done the last 2 years is to survive. The day will come. This is why I have the organization. It's an appropriate time to bring up that I had the privilege of having Kevin Byers as my lawyer and Siobhan Reynolds as my founding member of the new organization I established, Doctors for Equal Rights for Pain.
And Siobhan Reynolds is now deceased. She died in a plane crash, a small plane crash, after the government tried to shut her up.
It was
an assassination.
I'm convinced. And it happened, and I share this. It happened after I got a warning because three of us went to Virginia and talked with the press. I had a little media conference, and I had a public voicing meeting with local senators and congressmen, and got extraordinarily positive coverage. And I get it. The punishment was, hey, we're going to make you pay.
Doctor, let me interrupt real quick. I want to explain this just to the listeners who aren't familiar. Saban Reynolds was the leading advocate for pain sufferers and doctors that are being persecuted by the government in this country. And she established the Pain Relief Network. And she was getting involved along with a friend of hers who was a lawyer. They were getting involved in trying to help with the defense of doctors that are being wrongfully prosecuted.
Right, that was Kevin Byers.
Kevin Byers was the attorney, as well as the patients that are suffering and a lot of them committing suicide as a result of not being able to get relief from their pain and live their lives. So Saban Reynolds was the leading advocate in the country for this, and she, after the government tried to gag her for being involved in a case against another doctor, I can't remember his name at the time, the night after Christmas Eve, she was in a small plane with, it was herself, it was the lawyer that was helping with the legal defense, yes, and his mother, and the plane went down and all three of them died. And I do believe it was an assassination.
That, of course, it can be an accident, but I received a message, a very serious message, because I have a lot of angels in the community, including inside of hostile forces, that a plan of action was in play and I should watch. That's when I shut down my office and I left town. I did not tell my wife and my kids where I was going. I was that scared. And I warned Kevin and Shaban that they should go hiding and maintain a low profile. I cannot believe that statistically what occurred was an accident.
I don't believe it was an accident either.
But all I say is that pain is a good teacher, and I want to do something positive for all of us by learning from our mistakes as we move forward. I'm not promoting violence or revenge. What I want to promote is education and science. And also tell the guys like Dr. David Katz of Bethesda that he will be exposed as a liar, because when you write to the D.C. licensing board and say Dr. Salerian is running a narcotics for cash practice, I want him to know that one day he will be accountable. My patients and citizens who believe in integrity, institutional integrity, should call him up and say, Dr. David Katz, where did you come up with this idea? And what gives you the right to destroy thousands of patients because of whatever reason? We have to expose the bad guys, even if they are being blackmailed, because I see no other end. I'm not accepting poor excuses from CVS or Walgreens.
Right.
My local CVS in Potomac says, DEA guys came and threatened them. So now they're not accepting any prescriptions from me.
That's right.
And
that's right. And this
we're
is typical.
at that level where individuals must take responsibility for their negative decisions and lies.
And this is a chilling effect. This is typical. What is happening to Dr. Salerian? He's now gone bankrupt because the DEA, the government, has attacked his practice. He's not doing anything illegal. It's preposterous to call any doctor a drug dealer. It's just preposterous. So they have to spend so much money in legal fees just trying to hang on to their licenses that they lose everything. They lose their homes, they lose their vehicles, they lose their practice, they lose their ability to practice medicine, everything. And usually when that's all gone and done and the court cases are all done, they get to suffer in jail as well. And those that don't, some people, some doctors have committed suicide. And by the way, it was Dr. Schneider was the name of the physician physician
Dr. Schneider.
that Saban Reynolds was trying to help, right? And they tried to gag her and shut her up because she was making the case very difficult for the government by introducing facts into the case.
Yeah, God forbid they do something like that.
They tried to gag her, and she was suing them back, countersuing, so that...
But she went bankrupt. I mean, I know this.
Yes, her organization
I have a story to tell. I have written this about our last night. We were in Grundy, Virginia. They drove from Ohio to be with me during my presentation and press conference. And that night, we got together, and we were tipsy. We were not drunk, but we drank. And Shaban tells me, look, Alan, it's time for us to take off. You know, speaking the truth and defending science or medicine somehow is not the right thing to do in the United States. I think all three of us are finished. I say, look, I think you're depressed. I don't share that. Listen to me.
Right.
I have a way out. We're much better than this. Science is going to dictate.
Hold that thought. We'll get into more about Saban Reynolds when we get back in hour number 2. Folks, hour number 1 is done. Hour number 2 is on the way. When we come back, more with Dr. Alen Salerian after these messages in the news. We'll be right back. You can like us, tweet us, and watch us, all just by clicking the links under our social media section on the website. The biggest fear that the global gangsters have is the truth. So help us spread it far and wide, linking to us through our social media pages. Thanks for helping make Orion Talk Radio one of the fastest-growing talk radio outlets in the United States. Joe Joseph here, along with Angie Joseph, and our guest, Dr. Alen Salerian. And, honey, you wanted to start this conversation off for hour number 2, so...
Yeah,
please.
This is an area of major concern that a lot of people don't even know is going on. This whole war against doctors and pain sufferers, like pain sufferers are some kind of, modern day lepers. And people that are suffering with chronic pain, I explained earlier what they have to go through just to get seen by a doctor, and that doesn't even guarantee treatment. But if they do take you on and agree to treat you and they are prescribing you medication, the things you have to go through are just dehumanizing. You have to first sign a pain contract that says that, giving up some of your constitutional rights, your Fourth Amendment right for sure. You have to agree that every time you go into the doctor's office, you'll take a urine test so they can make sure that you're using your drugs properly and that you don't have anything else in your system. You're not allowed to get prescribed drugs by any other doctor. You can only go to one pharmacy, and if you miss any appointments or you fail on any one of the points that are in the pain contract, they kick you out. And what people don't understand about that is when they kick you out, you're pretty much blackballed by the community, and you can't get seen by another doctor or treated for pain because then in their eyes, you are now a liability. So they won't treat you. And it's just a horrific human rights violating situation that's going on in this country.
My dear, let me again interrupt here.
Yes.
To just enhance what you're saying. Unfortunately, what you're reporting is so sad, and it breaks my heart because this is not what medicine is all about. Medicine is about healing and helping. And our guru, our model is a man, Hippocrates, the oath. I'm so proud. Just a couple of months ago, I attended my son's graduation from medical school, and I had tears in my eyes repeating the Hippocratic oath because it's almost like it reminds me of our Constitution.
Yes.
It's so beautiful.
It
It's
is.
basically the message is, you're a lucky guy. Do not forget, or gal, do not forget that you're a doctor. And never forget that your job, number one, is to place your patient's interest ahead of anything else, not government, not you, nothing else. Any doctor who creates these monkey Mickey Mouse forms and forces you to give drug urines and surprise visits and so on is actually raping Hippocrates, is what I say, and does not belong. He may be practicing, but he does not have the privilege to call himself a doctor, because that's not doctoring. And I want patients and the public to be aware of it. When these things happen, I know it's the common standard, but let us not forget that 60 million Germans claim all Jews and homosexuals and gypsies should be dead. The number of people claim wrong things cannot replace what makes sense. So I don't care what DEA or FDA says in this context about violating and raping the Hippocratic spirit. What is right is right. We should be gentle and caring about patients and their human rights, and report these doctors and question the medical board and say, does this match the Hippocratic spirit that I'm now forced to give drug urines? No, it's a violation. I don't care how many people do it.
But
I refuse to do it.
If the patient says, no, I will not sign this, the doctor says, well, you know where the door is,
Yes, my dear, and I am in agreement with you. That's why, at least, I want patients to know that we should speak up and tell the doctor, look, this is against the Hippocratic Oath, and I'm protesting it. If you don't have to be a pioneer and a fighter. You say, I'm on record. I'm doing it only because you're twisting my arm. And I'm letting you know that this is anti-Hippocratic. Number one, I'm only doing it because you're holding a gun against my head.
That's exactly right.
Okay?
That's right.
Let the doctors know. Remind them. These
that you're
were
signing
good
under
boys
duress.
when they were in medical school. What happened to them?
Yes.
That's what I say. We're not like this. We did not go to medicine for what we're practicing now.
Well, Dr. Salerian, I admire your integrity. You've got more integrity than many people do, and even many doctors. And, like I said, I've dealt with this as a chronic pain sufferer myself. And, it's really an unfair situation that the doctors are being put in. That, like I said...
Don't compliment me too much. I'm seen as a giant because I'm surrounded by midgets.
Yes.
Okay? That is. I'm no giant. I'm an average person. This is what medicine is. My grand-grandfather and grand-grandfather were a family of physicians. And, in fact, I was born in Istanbul, not far from where Hippocrates was born. But these are not like Santa stories. Okay, this is in my blood, and this is how I see medicine. And I see myself as a lucky bastard in having the privilege of my patient's trust, that something means to me. And my son is a doctor. I'm very proud of him. And this is the way it should be, and I do believe that what you're witnessing now, what we are witnessing in the United States, is not who we are, okay? I feel we're kidnapped. Everybody is acting... because there is a gun being hauled against our heads.
Right.
And some of us are yielding and acting like a good slave, whipped. No excuses, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And the exit strategy, okay, I must come back to my hopeful line. There is an exit. The exit is education, informing, and confronting the pharmacist. Anybody who says something, record, and make sure that they sign that they're insisting on it. If the doctor says, these are my orders, if you don't do it, then please, sir, write this down on a piece of paper. Because you don't even have to say the rest. Because the truth is, if we have a system, if we report this doctor or pharmacist, they can lose their license due to their violations of the Hippocratic law. Okay? It's as simple. Nobody is pushing it. I know it from my own skin. How many pharmacists refused my prescriptions in the last 2 years? It was, but then I would get on the phone, I would fax them, I still do. All my prescriptions have a clear statement. Dear pharmacist, I'm in the spirit of helping my patients. Please help me. For any reason you're not honoring this prescription, please give me a call. If you don't, it's your... And if you don't, then I'm reporting you. Now, two things happen. My patients benefited. But for sure, I also made myself a target.
Absolutely. Well, the problem is, even when patients are able to get seen and treated and are able to get the prescriptions they need, oftentimes they run into problems, as you said, going to fill the prescriptions at the pharmacy. A lot of times the pharmacies don't even carry the medication, or they don't have enough of it, and then the patient has to go from pharmacy to pharmacy.
Oh, no,
of course they do lie. Doc,
okay? It's like Safeway running out of bread. If Safeway says we don't have bread, I say order more. It's a goddamn lie. They do lie. That's the most common lie I want people to know. If the pharmacist says we don't carry these medications, immediately ask them to put this in writing.
Folks, we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away. Folks, don't forget, in just about 40 minutes' time, following the Freedom Links Conspiracy Chronicles is The Information Nation with Ken Hildebrand. You can listen to all the latest top headlines and get Ken's take on what's going on in the world. That's The Information Nation with Ken Hildebrand, coming up at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm Joe Joseph, along with Angie Joseph and my special guest, Dr. Alen Salerian. And we were talking about the pharmacies and how they're complicit in this conspiracy against pain sufferers. And honey, you've dealt with that many a time with the pharmacies, haven't you?
Well, I've been kicked out of two different doctors' offices. Okay, the first one, when we moved down here from New York, and this all happened up in New York. I had great doctors up in New York. They were there throughout the whole process, with the pregnancy and the injury, and then the pregnancy with our last child, our son, and they were wonderful doctors. I came down here. I got into another doctor's office. He also was a great doctor, but when we had first moved down here, we were renting a house, and we had, within the course of less than a year, we had two houses that we were renting. Both of the owners went into foreclosure while we were living there, and we had to move twice and quickly with 3 small children. So I missed more than 3 appointments within like a 1-year time frame or whatever.
That was a very dark period in my life,
Yes,
Doc.
they kicked me out. That was the first one because I had missed too many appointments in the course of a year. 3, by the way, is too many. And then the second doctor's office I was kicked out of was because I also have a kidney disease. I've got Bright's disease, and I frequently get chronic kidney infections. And my kidneys were failing during the pregnancy with our daughter. That there was all kinds of problems going on, and so was my liver, and my blood wasn't clotting, and I hemorrhaged, and that's what caused all the intervention to try to stop the hemorrhaging that caused the injury. But so I had gotten a really severe kidney infection, and I was spiking fevers. We had to go to a patient first facility over the weekend, because it happened over the weekend, to get antibiotics and start controlling my fever so I wouldn't have to go to the hospital, because I always get hospitalized when I get these kidney infections. And while I was spiking fevers, the doctor told me specifically, do not wear the fentanyl patches if you have a fever, because when your body temperature goes up, it dumps some of the medication into your system. It'll dump more of the fentanyl medication, the narcotic, into your system, and of course can cause respiratory depression and so on and so forth. And I bought my patches with me when I went to the doctor that month, along with all the paperwork from my visit for my kidney infection and the antibiotics for that. And I said, I've been having to take these patches on and off every time I get a fever for the past few days. So of course they do the urine test and there wasn't enough of the drug in my system. I said, yeah, I told you there probably wouldn't be. I can't wear patches while I have a fever. And then they kicked me out. And then I stopped dealing with these doctors because, first of all, I didn't want to run the risk of getting blackballed by every doctor in the area and not being able to get treated. And I got tired of being treated like a criminal and a drug addict for something that happened through no fault of my own. And, having my rights violated. I have a moral problem with having to sign away my rights just to get medication that I need so that I can live my life. So what's happened is ever since I've not been on medication for my symptoms, my mobility has gone way down. I can't move around very much. And, it's caused a lot of issues for myself, my family. There's been a lot of suffering, a lot of nights where, I don't go to bed at night. I can't sleep. The pain is so bad I can't sleep. And so I have to wait to lay down and go to sleep until I'm literally at the point of passing out, because if I lay down before that and I'm laying down in bed for anything more than a few minutes, the pain starts setting in and getting really bad, and then there's no chance of sleeping. So I literally can't even lay down and go to sleep until I can't keep my eyes open anymore. And this is the kind of thing that, people that I am going through, people like me are going through, and it's wrong. It's a violation of people's human rights. It's unnecessary suffering. And as the doctor said before...
you're very articulate, and thank you for that. That is, this is what I hear day and night from my patients.
And it's
the
wrong.
Suffering and the discrimination. And what happens even when they have a prescription at hand and they walk into a pharmacy? It's nonverbal and sometimes verbal, but very often it's nonverbal. And then lies come. We don't have it. These are silly things to say. Safeway does not run out of bread or jelly. A pharmacy does not run out of painkillers. Okay? So... the moment a pharmacist says that, be suspicious about their integrity and authenticity. But if that's the case, ask them. And the language I promote is, look, my doctor wants a note, does not trust me, thinks that I'm not following his or her recommendations. Please write a note and say it is true that on this date, we don't have this medication, not even 4 or 5 to cover the patient's needs.
It's discrimination.
What would happen in 30 seconds? The truth will come
it's discriminatory.
to surface. And the patient, then the pharmacist will say, no, the truth is we have it, but we're not going to give it to you for this reason. The reasons are multiple. One, your doctor is from not this town. Now, that's not a crime. It's not that you went to China or Greece.
Right.
Okay, we're all Americans, and we're not independent states. The laws are that any doctor with a DEA privilege can write these medications. So people should be aware of it. Secondly, if they have a short supply, they can give you what they have, and then the rest can be... presented later with a new prescription.
Right, and we've had to do that before, where they'll give you what they have, and then you go back in a couple of days, and they give you the rest of the medication. But
the most common cause is prejudice and fear.
It is
because a DEA agent had visited them and said, these docs are in the blacklist.
That's right.
And don't
by the way,
honor their prescriptions. Now,
that's right. That's right, because...
It is a form of blackmail, and I have the evidence that this goes on all the time.
Well, because it's not just doctors and patients that are being targeted by the DEA and the government. It's also pharmacies. If they believe a pharmacy is filling what they say is too many prescriptions for narcotics, they will raid the pharmacy and shut it down and take away their license to fill prescriptions. So a lot of times if someone like me walks into a pharmacy with a prescription for fentanyl patches and 30 milligrams of oxycodone instant release, they'll say we don't have it because they don't want to fill it because it brings scrutiny. And, it's just not right. I mean, we're not talking about poison. We're not talking about methamphetamine. We're talking about a drug that relieves pain so people can just live a life. So people are not in too much pain to stand up and take a shower. I mean, it's the little things that it affects. People wouldn't even believe it. Joe sat up with me many a nights where I'm just in tears. I can't even sleep because I'm in so much pain. And that shouldn't be happening to anybody. There is a treatment for pain. It's effective, and it doesn't make you high when you're suffering with chronic pain, and it's narcotic pain relievers. It's not a poison. It's not some evil thing. It needs to be available
evil,
to those.
Let me say this: if it were evil, either God or nature would not have created it. It's like insulin. If somebody is diabetic, and if her or his body is not producing insulin,
Welcome back, folks. If you want the inside story on what really happened, take a trip down the rabbit hole with Popeye Wednesday and Friday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight and Sundays from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The most compelling 2 hours in radio, guaranteed to show you a side of the Matrix that you never knew existed. Down the rabbit hole with Popeye on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Joe Joseph here along with Angie Joseph and Dr. Alen Salerian. And Doc, now you started an organization, right, to help you in the fight against...
Really, yeah, thank you for commenting on it. Mm-hmm. Pain does good things. I have become, as I have gotten older, that pain is the best teacher. My pain of losing Shaban and Kevin prompted me to start an organization in the spirit that we were working with and memorialize their impact on this. So it's Doctors for Equal Rights for Pain, mental and physical. And our mission is to ensure that all pain patients receive equal rights. So right now, we are both doctors and patients are second-class citizens. We are slaves. We are an underclass. And the moment you walk into a doctor's office, to a pharmacy, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
A diabetic is not given the kind of indignities we're exposed to. A patient with blood pressure is not forced to attend methadone clinics, right, which itself is a shameful chapter. It's not a crime to be an addict or a pain patient. Why do you have to go to a methadone clinic every day? That's the best example I can cite about why I say we are second-class citizens as doctors and patients with pain or addiction. It makes no sense to force a human being to go to a clinic every day, 7 times a week, 365 days a year, and pay $30 a day and lose traveling privileges. It's insane. It's outrageous. But that's insane. One example of what pain patients go through in this country. The answer is for us to unite, to have one voice, and use the power of our beautiful laws and do it legally by confronting agencies such as, or institutions such as CVS, Walgreens, any pharmacy, all methadone clinics, and say, hey guys, why are you forcing somebody to attend a methadone clinic every day?
Yeah.
What happened to your brain? Why are we doing it? Methadone is not abusable.
But isn't it a more dangerous?
It's not more dangerous than the Digoxin. Why are we doing it?
Right.
So my center's name again is the Doctors for Equal Rights for Pain, and anybody can contact Salerian Brain. We're just in the process of changing, only because of sabotage, I would say, all our numbers. But we have a membership drive, and I invite anybody who wants to help human rights and integrity to join our organization so that we can speak with one voice and make positive changes.
Now, Doc, can people get access that through your website?
Yeah, through my website. That's Salerian, S-A-L, as in Larry, E-R-I-A-N, brain.com. And you could navigate, and there's a special section there for equal rights. Doctors for Equal Rights for Pain.
Very good. And folks, please visit that website because it's a great resource of information for you to get. And let me tell you something. The things that people go through, just when you look at, street dealers and everything, a lot of people have to resort to that. They have to go to the street to get relief. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Think about what you go through, what kind of scrutiny you go through when you go to a street dealer. Do you think they're going to have you fill out 50 forms and go through background checks and give you
I'll interrupt you and share a story. During my trial, this is happening in Washington, and now the accusation from the mayor is not that I'm a bad doctor. The accusation is I'm a criminal organization. So, 3 weeks trial, the cost is astronomical. I think it's $750,000 or something like that. But here is the highlight. 4 patients are the topic and shown as the evidence, but patients themselves do not know that either a fake complaint is coming from a doctor or a pharmacist. I did the wise thing intuitively and invited my patients to come and testify because I thought they can tell the judge their own stories. And here a man came. His name is Charles. I will honor, I don't have his permission, I only say Charles, and he happens to be from North Carolina. He travels. The guy is in his 50s, 500-pound steel fell on him and broke 4 or 5 bones, and he's most grateful for the care I had offered. And now the prosecutor is questioning him about how he's doing. And I love what he said. What I have to do is twice a week go to the emergency room. Then they gave me pills. And then the rest of the time I go to the street and buy my painkillers. And I don't care what you think about it, Judge. It's my ass that's hurting. I want you to know.
That's right.
And that seems to be the goal. They seem to want to drive people to the corner drug dealer who, and let me tell you something, the drug dealer on the street doesn't care why you want the drugs. They don't care what you're doing with the drugs. They just want their money. And whatever's on the street, there's no guarantee it's safe product, you know. But a lot of people that are suffering from legitimate issues are literally having to go to the street to get drugs to relieve their pain. It is unbelievable. It's a tragedy that it's happening in this country. And it will affect everybody.
Yeah,
everybody
and the thing is,
at some point in time will suffer with pain that requires narcotic medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see, my optimistic side says, I see a terrific opportunity now to make a change, because everybody realizes enough is enough, and that this nonsense has gone long enough that it is at a boiling point. And that is actually the energy that I would like to ride on. I think doctors are realizing they are scared. Patients have always been afraid, but they are not organized. The moment we put the information in front of the media, and we have the money power to push this, because this is not going to happen by itself. It's going to take a legal battle, and lawyers demand money.
Yes.
So that's a reality. And
it's very expensive, yes, to fight
very
this.
expensive.
Not only is it
if
expensive.
I have 5,000 members, I think we can afford anybody.
Yeah. Not only is it expensive to fight legally, but a lot of the patients can't fight because of their physical conditions, like myself.
Of course.
I cannot travel. I can't travel to Washington, D.C. to get involved with activism and start hounding the congressmen and senators in their offices about what they're doing. And a lot of them do it inadvertently. They believe the bad information that the DEA puts out and that the government puts out, and it's just not true. But they know that people like me cannot travel. A lot of us can't even make it to court to sit there through the proceedings. So we're sitting ducks.
The wonderful news I have is we have emails and faxes and letters. Do not let your physical limitations stop you. I would even, this is the next step that we're planning to. I'm going to put it on my webpage and the organization's webpage. The numbers that you I have very good support. I'm very encouraged. A colleague of mine, I was going to say, Dr. Philip Fisher from West Virginia, who is in a similar predicament as I am. Unfortunately, he cannot practice. They took him down, and he has 9,000 patients. He is a PhD and an MD, a wonderful guy, a scholar, an expert in pain. And imagine the indignities that he is going through.
Yeah.
And he has also joined us. He is one of the leaders. I'm actively recruiting all 2,000 doctors who have been harassed and forced out of medicine.
Every doctor should get behind this effort. Every doctor, because first it starts with narcotics that people legitimately need to live their life. And then it moves on to other things. It's about control. It's not about right and wrong. And a lot of their moral, and that I'm doing air quotes, moral argument comes from, a long, long time ago, when there was still this Puritanist view that somehow feeling good is bad or evil. So like Dr. Salerian said before, there's always going to be people that are going to abuse substances. If they want to do that, that's their business. But it's unconscionable that there are people in this country that cannot get up out of bed or go about their daily business simply because they're suffering in pain. It's treatable. It's easily treatable.
That's
Right. It's a human rights
I should even tell you, as a psychiatrist, Ted, suppose you have a problem with addiction. It's not a crime. So you have an addiction.
Right.
We can fix it. Period. It's a problem. We don't have to moralize it, and we don't have to confuse it with crime.
Right.
Period.
Well, because there is no crime.
People. Okay?
That's right. And let me just interject this too. And this is from. Let me just put my Joe Joseph hat back on for a second, and just say that from Liberty's perspective, from the perspective of you, your body is your property. And in the United States, property rights are the very basis for what make the United States so great, is that each person is sovereign unto themselves. Right. And so your body is your property to do with as you please. You don't answer to a monarch or a dictator or anything else. You have the right to choose whether or not you decide to go along with that or not. You decide what you're going to pump into your body or not. You could decide to eat healthy. You could decide not to eat healthy. But the fact of the matter is, government has no business getting into what it is you do to yourself.
And they absolutely should not be involved in the doctor-patient relationship.
No, because that has no bearing on anything. The fact of the matter is if you get drunk and you crash into somebody, you are responsible for your actions.
That's
right. And the same thing goes with anything else. This all spawns from the fact that the idea of personal responsibility has been removed from the United States. It's gone. The idea that you're personally responsible for your actions or inactions is now pushed off to the side in favor of statism and socialism, right, where you have social justice under the law, not equal justice under the law.
And they're protecting everybody from themselves.
And
that's right.
Very well said. In fact, the example that I share with will an average American be comfortable if we place videos in the examination room of a gynecologist? It's something very private.
Yes.
You're having your exam. It's between you and your doctor. Right now, the government is doing this. It's placing cameras, secret cameras, in the examination room. And filming it and then blackmailing doctors without informing the public or the doctors of it.
That is an
Any
absolute
prescription
outrage.
that I write, okay, it is on the board of DEA, and then they now have, in fact, a program that I want every American to be aware of and complain. It's called HIDTA. HIDTA. It's called High Intensity Drug Trafficking something. It's an acronym, HIDTA. It pours federal dollars to local jurisdictions. North Carolina, West Virginia, and Virginia have been showered with those federal dollars. What does this mean? When you're driving your car, the cop, the traffic officer, can look at your license and before stopping you knows what medications you're taking. Now, this is high-tech KGB.
Right,
I
exactly.
repeat, when you're driving, the police officer that is stopping you, supposedly for a traffic violation, okay, knows that you're taking a painkiller, and that's why stopping you. And we have now created a bonus system where you can stop people for a traffic violation, illegally search them, find narcotics, arrest them, put them in jail for prescriptions legally prescribed by the doctor. And how do I know? Because this happened to 28 patients of mine that I documented. 28 patients of mine within 1 year were stopped for traffic violations, for nonsense, ended up spending at least one night in jail, and then ended up each one spending $3,000 to $5,000 to lawyers and then to be exonerated 9 months later and to be congratulated by their own lawyers that justice served.
Yeah.
And both patient and myself said, what kind of justice?
And by the way,
driving.
A lot of times...
This is the program, it's a federal program, HIDTA, that's funneling money to local jurisdictions. It's totally anti-American, anti-constitutional.
It stands
and
for
people should be aware of it.
It stands for high-intensity drug trafficking areas. That's the name of the program.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
But this is how there is a collusion between the system, the federal government, and there are other rumors. I suspect they are true because other things I heard have always been verified that local law authorities are getting special bonuses for indicting.
Right.
And now it doesn't take a rocket scientist to stop somebody who's taking a painkiller and search the car illegally because you intimidate and you say, hey, we want to search the car.
And a lot of times
people will say, no, don't. And then you find a narcotic and you say, you have narcotics. And we know your doctor. He's a drug dealer. Yeah, we know Dr. Salerian. He's short and dark, and he's a Muslim. And that's where I was complaining. I said, look, I am short and dark. That's true. I meet the profile, but I'm not a Muslim, and it's not a crime to be a Muslim, for God's sake. And I am the former chief of FBI. These are goddamn lies. This is exactly what triggered my visit.
Right. And a lot of times, by the way...
to Cedar Bluff with Kevin and Shaban. I said, this is getting out of control. I want to go and poke my finger into their eyes and say, look, look at the Muslim, okay? Look who I am and what I do. I'm a doctor.
And a lot of times they don't...
these lies.
They won't just...
This is where the system has now lowered itself to, and it's not us. This is not America.
Right. A lot of times if they do that and they pull you over and they search your car illegally, not only will they press charges against you and do you have to go through a huge legal battle, but a lot of times they'll just impound your car right there as asset forfeiture and, take your car and you won't get that back.
You gave me the opportunity. Right now, federal government has 3 of my cars and over $200,000 of mine. I'm not being indicted or charged. It's been 2 years. 3 cars. And guess what? My government should be ashamed of this.
Yes.
In August, I got a ticket for my BMW that they confiscated getting an automatic ticket. Shame. Because he's driving my car. They took it away for 2 years. It's confiscated, okay?
And you're right, man. That's awful. Well, Doc, we're out of time, and I appreciate you coming on. Again, folks, that's Dr. Alen Salerian. His website.
We'll have him on again. We will have him on again.
By all means. Anytime.
We'll definitely have Doc on again because this is a fight that the Freedom Link is going to take up very avidly here in the next, in the days, weeks, months, years to come, is to get justice for those that are suffering needlessly because of government intrusion into the doctor-patient relationship. So again, Dr. Salerian, thank you for coming on. His website, salerianbrain.com. That's salerianbrain.com. And folks, the next broadcast is Tuesday evening, 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So I invite everybody to listen in. Until then, I'm Joe Joseph. Thank you very much for listening tonight and look forward to